The terrifying truth of being a spy in World War II. When a hint of betrayal may mean the difference between life and death. In the shadowy world of espionage, where secrets could turn the tide of World War II, the fate of those caught behind enemy lines was often sealed with unimaginable cruelty. The Nazis, infamous for their ruthlessness, harbored a special venom for spies, viewing them as the ultimate traitors to their cause. Under the iron grip of Hitler's regime, a clandestine war raged, a war not just for information, but for the very essence of resistance against a tyrannical power. The Gestapo, Hitler's secret police, became the architects of terror for those daring to gather intelligence against the Third Reich. From the dark corners of interrogation rooms to the grim confines of concentration camps, captured spies faced atrocities that defy human comprehension. Torture, psychological manipulation, and executions were standard as the Nazis sought to extract information and extinguish the flicker of opposition. Captured spies in the desolate environment of Nazi imprisonment endured a merciless assault of deprivation that robbed them of their basic humanity. They had to fight every day to survive in these harsh environments. With no breaks or relief from the harsh weather, they endured the worst of nature's fury without the luxury of warmth or cover, whether they were baking in the summer sun or shuddering in the bitter cold of winter. Starvation was another issue faced by the imprisoned spies. Letting them starve was the simplest method for Nazi officials to escape responsibility for looking after so many spies. The German generals were told unequivocally by the economic staff that we are not bound by any international obligations to feed prisoners. Spies would perish from malnutrition alone as a result of the ideology that permitted disobedience to both international law and moral duties to preserve human life. Food was provided to prisoners under their classification as laborers or non-workers. 20 grams of bread or millet, or around 2,100 calories, were provided to a soldier who was found fit to labor. At first, those unable to work were given 2,040 calories a day. This was later lowered to just 1,500. Either way, none of these diets included as many calories as would be required to sustain a healthy diet. The prisoners of war who have caused an intraceable problem for the food supply go without food for 6 to 8 days, and in the animal apathy brought on by hunger, have only one craving: to eat. Inadequate transportation was another issue that prevented the soldiers from being moved from camp to camp. The spies were only meant to be transported in open cattle carriages, so even that did not shield them from the bitter winter or cold. The temperatures might drop as low as 30 degrees below freezing in the eastern area, making hypothermia an inevitable death. Sometimes only 10 or 20% of the inmates carried to a camp arrived as living humans, even 2 months after the invasion, when they were still being transferred to their positions. Karl Landguth's evidence during the Nuremberg trials demonstrates how the Germans treated the prisoners of war like animals. He said that the Nazis occasionally packed as many as 3,200 prisoners into one vehicle. Torture for information. The treatment of caught spies in the dark corners of Nazi interrogation rooms reached previously unheard of heights of cruelty. The vicious and unrelenting beatings left no space for relief, and the very air seemed to resound with the cries of anguish. The Third Reich was trying to extract as much intelligence as possible, and electric shocks were coursing through their bodies in a vicious dance between anguish and acquiescence. The water punishment became a perverse symphony, its constant pouring reflecting the psychological assault these espionage agents were subjected to. At the same time, their interrogators attempted to extract the secrets concealed in the dark corners of their tough minds. Every drop serves as a reminder of the never-ending search for knowledge and the extreme measures taken to test the endurance of people for the sake of the Nazi war machine. These spies frequently faced an unsettling end in the bleak theater of Nazi justice, with no chance of fair process at all. Casting into the pit of despotism, these spies had to deal with a harsh world where decisions were made quickly. Denied the fundamental liberties granted to POWs, they were left at the mercy of their captors, whose decisions resounded with the icy finality of death. The Third Reich executed death with brutal efficiency, creating a horrific pattern of executions under the ominous shadow of dictatorship. The lives of these courageous people were taken in an instant, and shots could be heard resounding through the barren landscapes. Hangings evolved into a hideous spectacle, a demonstration of authority in public, meant to inspire terror and crush any ideas of resistance. Clinically timed lethal injections muffled dissenting voices into a menacing chorus of obedience. spies were thrown into oblivion, their doom marked with a cruel blow. The spies disappeared under the cover of darkness, their identities wiped from the records of history as they faded into the shadows in the night. The regime's unrelenting quest for total control went beyond the confines of the physical world and involved psychological warfare aimed at destroying any trace of opposition. The Nazis intended to sow conflict within the ranks of those who dared to oppress their dictatorship and inspire terror in the minds of those who bravely braved the abyss of uncertainty. The Nacht- und Nebel Directive served as a clear reminder of the regime's brutality and the extent they would go to hang on to power. The Nazis attempted to put out the flames of resistance through the enforced hush of disappearance, leaving a path of crushed hopes and broken spirits in their wake. Denial of POW status. Another complicated facet of the Holocaust is the atrocious treatment of captured spies by their Nazi captors. These courageous people were not protected by the POW status. Therefore, they were easily captured and subjected to the most severe forms of abuse without consequence. It is probably hard to provide a precise explanation for why these prisoners of war endured such unbearable brutality. It's even more difficult to understand how someone could be aware of the atrocities committed against the POWs and still act in such a callous and indifferent manner towards the taking of human life. The imprisoned spies were denied the rights and safeguards granted to prisoners of war under the Geneva Conventions, and their basic humanity was taken away from them according to the twisted logic of the Nazi government. Known as illegal combatants, they were thrown into a legal limbo where totalitarianism's iron fist took the place of the rule of law. Espionage captives in the depths of Nazi dungeons were sentenced to a life of agony, solitary confinement in the gloomy oubliettes. Bereft of any human interaction and cut off from the outside world, they sat in eerie quiet that reverberated with the weight of their hopelessness. Their only company while they were imprisoned in these stuffy rooms was the shadows that moved over the chilly stone walls, a continual reminder of the unrelenting solitude that surrounded them. Cut off from the support system of other prisoners, they struggled with the agony of isolation, their spirits crushed and shattered as they made a last-ditch effort to quell their rebellious determination, retaliation, and collective punishment. Within the merciless calculations of Nazi retaliation, the apprehension of spies provided a cover for heinous acts of revenge directed at defenseless citizens. Entire villages were subjected to collective punishment with chilling effectiveness. Their very existence was eradicated in a wave of cruelty meant to shatter any remnant of resistance against the Third Reich's iron grip. Furthermore, the motivation behind the Nazis' heinous acts against victims who were, for the most part, already half dead, will never be fully understood. This is History on Fleek, and we'll see you next time.